Hey there, and welcome to Ask Dan number 65, in which we'll talk about relapse prevention. I don't like the word relapse at all, but I haven't found a better one so far. I don't like it at all because it implies that insomnia is this like condition that you can, keep at bay. Like you could push it down in the basement, but sometimes it comes back. You have no control over it, etc. It's not at all like that. Once you've completely understood it, it will never bother you again. But in lack of a better word, for now, I'll call it that, relapse prevention. And the reason we are doing this episode today is because we have an email from Erin, who is a previous BedTyme client. And let's read her email, and then we'll go from there. So a few days ago, Erin wrote the following email. Dr. Daniel, I had great success with your BedTyme app back in December. I had major anxiety and insomnia for a year. By April, I only had about one bad night for the month. In late April, I started to smoke a small amount of marijuana to calm my nerves about everything going on in the world. I smoked most nights before bed, and I found that I was falling asleep great, and my sleep confidence was very strong, even on nights I didn't smoke. I eventually had a bad night, but didn't get anxious and was really proud of myself. I later had a bad night where I was very anxious, so I continued to smoke every night before bed because my confidence had been knocked. 2 of the last 3 nights, I have been up late and mildly anxious, and I was not high at bedtime. I'm wondering what to do at this point. I feel that maybe I need the marijuana to sleep, even though I know that is not true. Do I need to stop entirely, go back to the CBT-I techniques? Where would I start? Work on my thought process or what? Last night, I fought with myself about getting out of bed when I couldn't sleep. I dread to get out of bed to read. I can't find anything relaxing to do when I have to get up, so I just stay in bed and try to calm down. It's really only 2 poor nights, but I want to get this under control before it becomes a real problem again. I'm going to highlight something here that I think is important. I don't mind laying in bed if I'm calm. It's the anxiety that is my real problem. Thanks, Erin. And then there's a follow-up from Erin as well, which we'll read in a second. But firstly, let me just say that, Erin, I'm very happy you're in touch. And anyone out there who has worked with me in any capacity, please always stay in touch if you're into any troubles. And by the way, Erin did a great job here, like had one bad night and didn't get anxious. That's great. Doing some self-coaching, like it's okay. That's perfect. But again, if things are kind of getting outside of your comfort zone, you don't really know what's happening, then please reach out to me just like you did. That's fantastic, Erin. So with that said, I want to start off actually by talking about emotions. We're going to get very practical in a second here, but let's start off by talking about emotions. So emotions, we all know what that is. We have them all the time. It can seem like there's a whole kind of like an infinite range of emotions, and maybe there are in the sense that there can be like, you can combine emotions. It can be a strong emotion combined with a weaker emotion, this and that. It can be it's a spectrum, but basically there are these 5 emotions, right? Like anger, fear, sadness, disgust, and happiness. Those are the ones. And it can seem like they just, happiness is there for our pleasure, and anxiety is there to like make our lives miserable, etc. But in reality, they have very, very practical purposes. They're all related to like really the survival of our species. Most of them, like let's call it the blue ones, everything except happiness, are there really for safety, and happiness is there for like positive, proactive things that are meant to keep us alive, like going out there and finding berries or hunting a mammoth or whatever we need to do. Now the blue emotions there are for safety, as mentioned, and it's pretty obvious when you think about it what they're there for. So fear is there to make sure we run away or hide or fight when something is attacking us. Anxiety is a type of fear type emotion. Sadness is there when kind of the overwhelming odds, we're not supposed to fight or flight, we just like stay where we are, don't do anything, is probably the best survival mechanism there. That's when we use sadness. Disgust is there to make sure we don't eat anything that's poisonous. Anger is there to really make sure we defend ourselves. Now, here's the thing. These emotions have a practical purpose, and when there is like an external threat, something like a grizzly bear coming at us or something like that, then we're supposed to like, feel a certain emotion, and that leads us to a place of like either fighting it off or feeling safe, etc. But the thing here is that if an emotion itself becomes unwanted, then it kind of becomes a threat. It becomes something that the brain thinks like, I don't want this. I don't want to have this emotion. How can I get rid of it, have less of it? And when it becomes that kind of unwanted thing, sort of a threat, then the mind goes into like fight or flight mode applied to the emotion itself, So then it says, I'm having so much anxiety. I don't want to have that anxiety. I have to do something about it. And then it either tries to like escape it or fight it off. And we do various things to make that happen. That could be like we try to like buffer it. We don't want to feel so much anxiety. So like overeat, or we like just binge watch movies or things of that nature. Now, what happens then is the fear of that emotion becomes actually increased, because all your behavior is telling your brain that you really don't want this. You have to do things to keep that emotion away. You have to fight it off. You have to escape it, etc. So the fear of that emotion actually increases when you do that kind of buffering, escaping, avoidance type reactions. Then the anxiety in this example actually becomes stronger and stronger. So it's really true what they say: what you resist persists, whatever you try to avoid actually becomes a bigger problem in your life. And that's why I highlighted this phrase here where Erin says, I started to smoke a small amount of marijuana to calm my nerves. That's another way of saying I didn't want to have that anxiety that all the things in the world made me feel. So I started to smoke a little bit of marijuana to calm my nerves. And that intention is so important, because if somebody said has smoked a small amount of marijuana, which is legal in our state, I hope it's legal in whatever you are, when somebody does that for the sake of like enjoyment, pleasure, to enrich their life experience, there's really no problem. It's like drinking wine or having, eating things that are not quote unquote healthy. It's fine if you're doing it for pleasure. That's totally fine. But if we're doing anything for the sake of escaping an emotion, then because of the reason we just talked about, that emotion actually takes a bigger and bigger portion of your life, So as we continue reading, I smoked most nights before the bed and found I was falling asleep great. And this is where the part where like it seems like it's the right thing to do, because for a while you can kind of buffer the emotion. You can kind of push it down the basement, like you're smoking, you're feeling good, you're like, I got it under control. But in reality, you're actually teaching your brain like anxiety should be avoided, which makes you, whenever you have anxiety, it's like, oh my gosh, like it triggers you more because the fear of the anxiety has increased. And going along with that, it's like you right here, and my sleep confidence was very strong, even when I didn't smoke. I think there was probably a component of you felt like things were under control there. You felt like even if I don't sleep, I can always smoke weed. So you were kind of like relaxed in a way. But even though it seems like your sleep confidence was strong, I think you'd actually started seeding confidence. You had started kind of externalizing it. And even if some nights you slept well without smoking any weed, it was because you relied on that. You thought probably like, if I don't sleep well, I can always smoke weed. Everything is fine, So it wasn't actually true sleep confidence. You had in fact started externalizing that. And that, that goes along with what we'll read later. I later had a bad night where I was very anxious, so I continued to smoke every night. And there we go. There's like, you instead of having true like sleep confidence, or like you had a bad night and it's like, oh, didn't react to it at all, sleep will come back. You went in the direction of like, I have to do something to sleep more. And marijuana seems to have helped in the past. Now I'm going to do more of that. So you're again trying to like buffer an emotion. You're doing more things to prevent anxiety, which can seem like a good idea, but again, the anxiety just grows and grows in this scenario. And then that's exactly what happened. To the last 3 nights, I've been up late, mildly anxious. I was not high at bedtime. I'm wondering what to do. I feel like maybe I need the marijuana to sleep. That's again like that part of your brain that wants to keep you safe. It's trying to get you to do more things to escape the anxiety or sleeplessness. Now it's kind of both here. Now you both have anxiety and sleeplessness that you're trying to escape. And it's easy to see where that instinct comes from, but you, based on what we talked about, you can see that trying to control it is the opposite of what you want to do, you know? So, so the question here is, do I need to stop entirely, go back to CBT-I techniques, where should I start, et cetera, et cetera? So I think when at this point in the discussion, the specific question is, what should I do about the marijuana? And I want to go back to, like, if you're doing anything to like escape an emotion, it's not good because the emotion becomes bigger. If you do anything to escape sleeplessness, or another way to put it, wakefulness, if you try to like produce more sleep, if you want to escape wakefulness, then you will have more of it. So there are two ways to move forward here. One is to, or I guess three ways. It's one is to say, oh no, I'm just going to smoke marijuana for pleasure, which I think is very tricky to do this in this point, because you used it kind of like a buffer. But to say, okay, I'm never going to use it for the purpose of not being anxious or sleeping more, but if I feel like it, if I want to enjoy myself, it's fine. That's kind of one approach. Another approach is to do what I often tell people to do that are medications and want to come off of them, is like, well, take it every night. Take it every night like a robot, the same amount, same time every night, and then it becomes a non-factor. Then whatever variability you have in your night sleep, it has nothing to do with the marijuana, and that's one way. And the third way is to just not taking it at all. Those are three good options. But the key here is that we should never do anything with intent of making us sleep, or with intent of escaping anxiety or escaping sleeplessness. Very, very important. And becoming more practical here again, I found myself, I fought with myself about getting out of bed. I dread having to get out of bed to read. I can't find anything relaxing to do when I have to get up, so I just stay in bed and try to calm down. So two things here. I think there's absolutely no reason for you or anybody else there to like purposely get out of bed. We often hear when it comes to like CBT-I that, oh, you need to start associating your bed with sleep again. So if you're not sleeping in bed, you have to get out of bed. I think that teaching is not good at all. It creates pressure. You feel pressure to sleep in bed, not good at all. So when you're awake in the evening or at night or something like that, the key thing, what you really want to do is like stop trying to escape wakefulness, but make wakefulness your friend. And when wakefulness becomes your friend, it's not a threat, it's not an enemy, it's not something you're fighting with, it becomes your friend, then everything changes. Your mind stops fighting you. It stops like trying to avoid or prevent wakefulness. Instead, it goes, oh, wakefulness is not bad. Oh, I can dial down this whole fight or flight reaction. Oh, wakefulness is a friend. Good. That is definitely the path towards sleeping well again. So what do I mean by that? What do I mean by making wakefulness your friend? It is doing something when you're awake, whether it's in the evening or at night, that is enjoyable to you, that you like to, that you look forward to do. Weird as this may sound, it's super important to look forward to going to bed and also look forward to waking up. I know that's not going to happen overnight, but that is the key. So don't look for anything relaxing, because if you're waking up and you're doing something that is relaxing, like listening to some soothing sounds or meditation apps, or you're reading a boring book, you are again trying to escape wakefulness. You're trying to make yourself sleep. So you have to do something that brings joy to you, that you look forward to. And weirdly, when you look forward to waking up, you don't, because the brain is not afraid of waking up then. And I also highlight here, I just stay in bed trying to calm down. That goes back to the first thing we talked about. Whenever you have an emotion and you try to escape it, like you try to make yourself calm down, the opposite happens. Maybe not that very time. Maybe one time you can do something, to calm yourself down that particular time, and it may seem like a good thing, but it's not, because you've trained your brain that it's bad to feel this way. So don't do anything with the purpose of like escaping anxiety, or like with the purpose of trying to calm yourself down. You have to do something that you just enjoy. And then another thing I highlighted was like, I want to get this under control. Very important again, and it also goes along with everything we said here, is that whenever you try to control an emotion or control sleep, the opposite happens. You lose control. So the tricky part with sleep, the tricky part is that you have to completely, move away from trying to control it. And that's actually when sleep starts coming your way. That is really, really important. And I have some kind of like 3 bullet points that I want to talk about before we end this episode, but with practical things. But before, let's read the kind of follow up from Erin here. Update on last night. Last night I smoked marijuana before bed, and instead of being calm, I got very anxious about whether I would sleep, this is completely expected, because you have somehow, you've started to think that maybe I need something to sleep, maybe I need to marijuana. It's helped before. Why isn't it helping now? And now you're thinking along those terms. So now instead of calming you down, it's like, what if this doesn't work? What if I have trouble sleeping again? And you become more anxious for the exact reason we talked about. I did fall asleep within about 30 minutes, but woke up, my guess would be around an hour later, struggled to fall back asleep. I got very hot and uncomfortable, but stayed relatively calm, but frustrated. I knew there would be a day it stopped, quote unquote, working like any other sleep aid. I'm guessing you plan to address this. Yeah, absolutely. The whole thing about like when things stop working, and this is important because I wanted to talk about this, is that nothing but your own body can make you sleep. Nothing else can do that. No medication, supplement, whatever can make you sleep. So when you were sleeping really well, I smoked most nights and finally I was falling asleep great, which you wrote in the early part of the email. The key insight there is that you did that but your body did that. Nothing else did that. There was nothing else that made you sleep. The thought of having the marijuana, or the substance itself can kind of change the way the mind produces thoughts. True, but really, I think the calming effect mostly comes from more of the thinking, how we think about it. You think, I'm going to smoke this weed, I'm going to feel relaxed, and those thoughts really are what produces calmness or absence of anxiety. It's a thought that do that, not the chemical itself. So it's not actually that it stops working, as in like the chemical is not more, it's like out of your body. It's that you question it, you think differently, like you no longer believe in it. That's where it, quote unquote, stops working. It's just like a magician when they have this coin trick, right? They make you believe the coin is in their hand, and then when they don't have it anymore, it's like, oh, it's gone. No, it was never actually there. It's like the marijuana never made you sleep, so it can't really, it didn't stop working. It never worked. It never made you sleep. That's more true. And again, like Erin, I think you're doing really well. I stayed relatively calm but frustrated. You have not gone down like a rabbit hole of like really searching for things, trying to make yourself sleep, etc., which I believe is due to like the great work you did with BedTyme and all the education you had. But you can see how you are your mind is kind of dangling this thing in front of you, like it's kind of baiting. It's telling you like, oh, now you have a problem, now you should do something. Like your mind kind of wants you to do more stuff, which is really a trap. You don't want to go there. So what should you be doing? Let's get real practical here. Firstly, I think we already talked about this one, but I want to emphasize it. No need to get out of bed, but try to make wakefulness your friend. That's a very important one. I don't think at all you need to change your habits in terms of like what time you get up in the morning, what time you go to bed. Just stick with that, with the caveat that, if you have a night where you don't sleep much, don't go into that other trap of like, I'm going to catch up on sleep. I have to sleep during the day now, I have to sleep in the evening, I have to catch up on sleep. No, keep your sleep where it typically is. But other than that, you don't need to change anything, but make wakefulness your friend. Very good one. Number 2, escaping an emotion makes it stronger. Very, very important. And by the way, if you have, not only like sleep related anxiety, but general anxiety, then definitely check out, there's a playlist I've made here that's called the self-coaching model, or simply the model, that really teaches you how your mind works. I think you can use that to your favor. Absolutely. And then here's the big one. Okay. So when it comes to relapse prevention, and this is something I'm now incorporating in all my teaching, is that, what is this? When you've had trouble sleeping, like you did, Erin, then, if you have not completely understood it, then you can always have a lingering fear of like, what if it comes back again? And I think that's what's happening now. You're worried, you're fearful that what if this escalates and I have a lot of trouble sleeping again? And by the way, whenever I have a client that comes back to me, I'm always like, I try not to judge myself. Like, you shouldn't judge yourself. Nobody should judge anybody or themselves. But I can't help but think that my teaching needs to get better. So there's no fear at all. And this is what I'm going to incorporate in all my teaching. This sounds kind of weird, kind of crazy, but this is the key. Being willing to experience X neutralizes the fear of X. So here's the thing. When you are afraid that you're going to have trouble sleeping again, like you had in the past, any thought that is in the direction of like, no, I can do this to prevent this. No, I can do that. I can do that. I'll do all these things to prevent that from happening, actually are not helpful. It is only when you go in the direction of, all right, if I have trouble sleeping again, just like I did in the past, if the big one comes back again, just as bad as it was then, that's okay. I'll get past it another time. That's okay. When you no longer fear that period of insomnia that you had when it all started, etc., when you're willing to have that, when you accept that you can have that again, then you never have it again. When you truly are willing to have it again, you never have it again. So that being willing to experience X again, in this case, neutralizes the fear of X. So Erin, I hope this brought a lot of value and that you'll have a very, very clear path of like how to move forward and that you'll start sleeping amazing. But that said, you know, if you have any questions about this or any other questions come back, then please send another email to you. Hope this brought a lot of value to you and anybody else that tuned in here. And for anyone here, if anybody has a comment, please leave it in the comment section or send me an email here, questions@sleepcontroller.com. And I look forward to having you back here real soon. Until then, bye-bye.